Welcome to Transform Now, a podcast focused on intelligent automation and brought to you by SS&C Blue Prism. On this program, we talk about how organizations globally are rethinking the way they operate, utilizing process orchestration and AI-enabled digital workers to free up humans to do the work that matters most. We also share insights and tips on how you can embrace this new way of working and unleash your full potential. Let's get into the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Transform Now podcast. I'm Michael Marchuk.
And I'm Brad Hairston.
And this is our weekly pulse check on automation and AI news. Of course, as you all know, you can check the show notes to see all the article links that we've had for the articles that we covered today. So, Brad, let us get into it here with this article from Forbes that's talking about, well, actually, the article title is Why You Must Twist Your Data Scientist's Arm to Estimate AI's Value. I thought that was an interesting way of putting it. The article goes on about data and the way that data scientists approach the data process and whatnot. And I know I've seen this in the past with basically any discipline, but they start talking very deeply about a specific subject that they're extremely interested in and kind of forget the bigger picture of things.
Yeah.
Tell me what this article is kind of going into.
Yeah, I thought it was an interesting piece. Eric Siegel is the person who wrote it. He's a former Columbia University professor who focuses on machine learning. So first of all, I'm glad there's a little bit of focus put back on the data scientists. We've kind of diminished the role of the data scientists. All the focus right now is on the large language models. We call business people citizen data scientists now. And that's all. It makes sense that we're doing that. But yeah, this article, I think, is hitting on a really important matter, which is data scientists. It's not part of their culture to really think about, the business case or the, what are the tangible business benefits that are going to come from some type of insight, right? They're really good at using the models, using the tools, synthesizing data. But it's so important that the business case be rock solid. And I remember talking to Tom Davenport about this. Tom's like one of the authorities on AI. He's a professor himself. He's written tons of books on the subject, and he's been on the podcast 3 different times. And the first time I had him on, we talked about why more AI projects are not making it all the way into production. And he had a lot of really interesting thoughts. I think understanding and assessing the value and being able to communicate that was part of it. But honestly, he talked about other things that are at play here. And, one of them, I think, was, if I recall, was the sponsorship of projects that are, AI centric. Sometimes it's not as strong as it needs to be. And because if you are relying on data scientists to derive all these powerful insights and bring those forward, you've got to be very patient. You've got to allow for a lot of data to be gathered, and then a very long window for training the data. And, so we talked about that. I also had another guest on the podcast who talked about the training of data and how that consumes most of the time of the data scientists. In fact, this gentleman I had on, he runs a company that automates data labeling because he's convinced that is the number one bottleneck to data scientists in the work that they do. But I recall him saying that alone consumes the majority of their time. It's just training the data, getting the model to the point where it needs to be. And I remember hearing that GPT, the first version, took like 3 years to build and train. So, I think there's a lot on the data scientist's plate. Maybe they don't have enough time to learn how to construct a business case, but clearly that is important.
Well, you've mentioned a couple of things about professors. So I'll go to a second article here, which is talking about the professors. This is from Chronicle.com, which is the Chronicle of Higher Education. The professors ask, are we just grading robots? Some are riding the AI wave, while others feel like they're drowning. So this article kind of goes into a little bit of the details and some of the things that we've sort of debated internally about, is AI a good thing for education? Is AI a bad thing for education?
Right.
What does this article present, and how do they see it?
Well, they see professors on both ends of the spectrum. So there's some that think it is destroying education, it's destroying critical thinking, and we're on this, slippery slope that we just can't get off of. Other professors that are mentioned in the article view it as something that is very powerful that can augment and stir up more creativity in the students. So there are there are differing opinions. I think the article overall is fairly negative toward generative AI and the effects that it's having. I thought it was interesting that one professor in the article said that he's going to assign less writing and less deep reading because now it's really hard to assess students' ability in those areas. And I think he said he's also going to use more in class handwritten exams. So you can see how that would be a logical path to go down. It's like, I can't let them take exams at home. I can't let them write essays at home. I can only put it in front of them and let them do it here in class, where they can't use a computer. They can't use a large language model unless they're using Google glasses that have a chat GPT window open in them, or I guess a Gemini window.
Then maybe they're going to be wet wired into all this stuff. Who knows? Well, it's interesting
Yeah.
that you say that, is that I had a podcast with Juliet Powell, who's a professor at NYU, and she has been seeing her students who are in the business school connecting very deeply to AI and seeing the business benefits of AI going forward, but perhaps not necessarily learning through AI or cheating through AI, however you want to describe it, of
Mhm.
not getting the concepts, but looking how to apply this technology as everything else. And I think most people would agree that, hey, listen, once they get to a certain level of math problems, I'm going to whip out a calculator. Not that my
Mhm.
students do it because I probably have those basic skills that are still there, but because it's so much quicker, easier, and I understand the concepts behind it, I can use a tool then to get the answer or the information I really
Right.
need. So maybe at some point, these professors will reevaluate and see this in a different light.
Yeah. No doubt.
So our last article for this one is talking about entertainment, and I know you, Brad, you are a fan of entertainment and all sorts. This is from Spectrum News, talking about entertainment. The majority of consumers prefer human generated movies and TV. So my first question is, how would you know, right? But can you talk us through this here? This is based on a study that Baringa did.
You hit on the biggest point, which is how do you know? And right now, there hasn't been a clear type of AI unto itself that can assess or find something that is AI generated or detect it. They keep saying that even OpenAI said shortly after ChatGPT was really, oh yeah, we're going to create a form of AI that will allow you to know whether something is AI generated or human generated. So we'll see how that turns out. There's going to be a level of suspicion around that, I think, too. Um, and Michael, and this is mentioned in the article, but this comes on the heels of the Tribeca Film Festival announcing that they are screening 5 AI generated short films this month when the festival is being held. So that in and of itself is interesting. And this one does hit home for me, and you know this because I've been fooled more than once with deep fake videos. In fact, there was one just last week. I saw a trailer for a movie that was being rebooted from 20 years ago, a Keanu Reeves movie, Constantine, that I really liked. And I see a trailer that is Constantine 2, being made. And I even forwarded it to some friends of mine and said, "Hey, look at this! It's pretty cool. They're gonna do a reboot." And So it was really funny when you sent me a note and said, Brad, that was a fan generated or a concept video. So it was AI, it was Gen AI generated. And I felt like such an idiot. But I'll tell you, the special effects in it were really good. If that was the movie they're making, I probably would go see it.
Well, it's pretty interesting you say that too, because two parts to this. Obviously, knowing what was generated by AI and not. There's the visual element, and then there's the dialogue that characters would say, even if they are human actors doing the dialogue. Was that written by AI? Was written by a human, right? So,
Right.
it's difficult to tell, but we've also gotten very comfortable, and I would really be very comfortable with computer generated graphics for movies and whatnot.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody balks when they say, "Oh, look at that beautiful landscape," and they're in this special thing. When in fact they're all sitting in a giant warehouse that has green screens everywhere. They're not on scene anywhere. They're doing all this work in a very controlled environment to allow them to get the lighting right, the sound right, etc. But we as consumers have all accepted that that's kind of how movies are made now. So again, maybe like the professors, we'll see a more accepting tone to AI generated content, especially as we're seeing these tools become more and more proficient at generating imagery that is kind of difficult to tell whether or not it's an actual object or not.
Yeah. Yeah. I had another AI expert on the podcast, a gentleman named Manoj Agarwal, and he made a great point. He said that at some point, AI generated, art and movies and things like that will become so pervasive that and it will be probably in the future. At some point, there will be a way to detect what is AI versus human. But he really sees human generated art in any form becoming, basically higher in demand, more valuable, that this will not diminish what humans are doing to create, in artistic ways. It'll actually raise it. It'll increase the demand for it. People are going to want paintings in their house that were painted by humans versus AI models. So yeah, it's an interesting thought. I think in a world where machines are taking over, all aspects of society, I think there still is room for human creativity and human expressions of art. And we just got to make sure we don't let that all fizzle out and just say, well, I can have this AI model, write this story for me and just take a nap instead. I hope that doesn't happen. There will be some that will be lazy and feel that way and take advantage of it. But I'm hopeful that on the flip side, more people will use it to augment what they're doing. And especially in Hollywood, I know the writers, picketed forever against AI, and they really wanted, to increase or to salvage their value, their role in Hollywood. And I'm hoping at some point we get to a place where you can have both, and they can leverage AI when they need it, and if they don't need it and they write a great plot, fine. Let's have the best of both worlds. But
Yeah.
very interesting times we are in.
Yeah, I totally agree. But, when you talk about human painted art versus AI generated art, I would put the caveat that no one would buy art generated by me. I have no talents when it comes to painting something. So I think it is going to be one of those things where I would probably prefer AI generated art over my art because I can't create it. But if you have people who are talented, people will gravitate toward that talent, and they'll gravitate toward the feeling it gives. So I totally agree with that. Well, that's all we have for this episode. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And of course, if you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button, and we'll catch you next week on the Pulse Check.
Thank you for listening to Transform Now, the podcast from SS&C Blue Prism. You can find all of our episodes on your favorite podcast channel, as well as YouTube. To stay on top of the hottest topics in the world of intelligent automation, subscribe now. The future of work is here.